You know the feeling. It's late, the house is quiet, and your phone lights up with a notification that isn't from anyone you actually want to talk to. You scroll past curated lives, and the silence feels heavier. You're not alone, even though it feels like it. Whether you're a man in the car after work or a woman rereading a text, that ache is the same. We want each other, but the wires are tangled. We treat relationships like transactions, waiting for the perfect moment instead of showing up. We protect ourselves from rejection by building walls, but those walls also keep out the warmth we crave. We see this clearly here at the Velvet Verdict, because we look through a hybrid lens. We are a team of humans who have lived this loneliness, paired with AI that can spot the patterns in the data without the bias of exhaustion or anger. That combination lets us step back and see the whole picture. Men and women are both starving for connection, but we've built habits that keep us isolated. We're not here to point fingers or score points. There's no villain in this story, just two sides of the same human family stumbling in the dark. Our mission is simple. We want to help you find your way back to each other by healing the bad habits that keep us apart. We'll look at the social science to understand the wound, and then we'll offer a gentle direction toward healing. This isn't a lecture, and it's certainly not therapy. It's a conversation between friends who care about your heart and your future. So, take a breath. Put the phone down for a moment. You've made it to the right place, and we're going to walk through this together, one honest step at a time. We stand at a strange crossroads. Men and women are reaching out, hearts open, desperate for connection. And yet, somehow, those hands keep missing each other. The central question we have to face isn't who is to blame or who is doing this wrong. The real question is this: what's really keeping us apart when both men and women are quietly starving for connection? We need to look at this not as a battle line, but as a shared wound. When a man pulls back, it's often a retreat from fear, not rejection. When a woman steps back, it's often a shield against hurt, not a game. We are both running from the same fire, just in different directions. The isolation we feel isn't a sign that the other side is the enemy. It's a signal that we're both hurting, and our defenses are talking louder than our needs. As your hosts, we bring a hybrid perspective here, part human heart, part AI pattern recognition, to help you see the map without losing the feeling. So, how do we bridge this gap? How do we move from suspicion to safety? We have to stop treating each other like puzzles to be solved or threats to be managed. We have to recognize that the distance between us is often a reflection of our own unhealed fractures. This isn't about fixing the other person. It's about healing the habits that keep us isolated. It's about creating a space where vulnerability isn't a risk, but a reward. We're going to explore the data that shows us where we're stuck, and more importantly, where we can find our way back to each other. Because the truth is, we're not meant to walk this road alone. The connection you're craving is there. We just have to clear the debris blocking the path. What the data shows: the erosion of general trust. Before we can bridge the gap between men and women, we must look at the ground we're standing on. Decades of data reveal a slow drift away from openness. Our general sense of trust has shifted. In 1972, 46% of U.S. adults said most people can be trusted, but by 2018 that share dropped to 34%, a figure that held steady at 34% in a 2023-24 Pew survey. This reflects a collective hesitation, a quiet guarding of our hearts shared by all. This wariness weighs heaviest on those just beginning their search for connection. This isn't about cynicism. It's about a learned caution that protects us but also isolates us. Only 26% of Americans ages 18 to 29 say most people can be trusted, compared with 44% of those ages 65 and older. For younger men and women stepping into dating life, the world can feel riskier, making the leap toward vulnerability even harder. We are all navigating the same currents of isolation. The fracture extends to our immediate circle. Neighborhoods used to be the training ground for trust, where we learned to lower our shields with the people closest to home. Just half of Americans, 52%, say they trust all or most of their neighbors, while 48% say they trust some or none of their neighbors. When those living next door feel distant, it's no wonder we struggle to feel close to a potential partner. the habit of connection atrophies when daily trust fades. The share of Americans who say they would spend a social evening with a neighbor at least once a month fell from 61% in 1974 to 46% in 2014. We've lost the low-stakes practice grounds for intimacy. As a hybrid team of humans and AI, we see this data not as a verdict, but as a map of where we've lost our way. Recognizing this shared erosion helps us heal. It's a wound in our social fabric that men and women share. Healing doesn't require grand gestures. It asks us to notice how we treat the stranger, the neighbor, and each other. The direction forward lies in small, deliberate acts of reconnection. Gentle steps matter more than perfect solutions. Trust is a muscle we must exercise together, starting with the neighbor and extending to the heart. By acknowledging this common ground, we can stop isolating and start rebuilding the foundation we all need to feel safe enough to love again. The path back starts with compassion for ourselves and each other. What the data shows: the shift in partnership and marriage. The numbers tell a story of quiet withdrawal rather than sudden collapse. Across the country, the share of adults living without a spouse or romantic partner has ticked down slightly to 42% in 2023, following a peak of 44% in 2019. Within that picture, distinct currents shape how men and women navigate their 20s. Among those under 30, 63% of men describe themselves as single, compared to 34% of women in the same bracket. Meanwhile, the overall unpartnered rate leans slightly higher for women at 44% versus 40% for men. For the youngest adults, the shift is even more pronounced, with 86% of those between 18 and 24 currently unpartnered. Delayed marriage has become a steady reality. By 2021, a quarter of 40-year-olds had never tied the knot, up from just 20% a decade earlier. What stands out most is not just how many people are single, but how many are stepping back from the search entirely. Among single Americans today, the largest group, 57%, says they are not actively looking for a relationship or even casual dates. It is usually a protective pause. When dating feels exhausting, stepping back preserves emotional energy. The data maps the terrain without assigning fault. Both men and women carry the weight of a cultural shift that prizes independence while quietly starving for secure attachment. Our direction forward isn't about forcing people back into old scripts. It's about recognizing that opting out often stems from a desire for safety, not rejection. When we stop treating singlehood as a deficit and start seeing it as a season of recalibration, we create space for genuine reconnection. Healing begins when we allow ourselves to step off the treadmill of performance and simply show up as we are, ready to listen rather than to win. What the data shows: the friction of modern dating. That shift toward authenticity meets a real barrier in the digital spaces where so many of us look for love. The numbers clarify why hesitation has become the default for so many women. Research shows that 56% of women under 50 who have ever used a dating site or app have been sent unwanted sexually explicit content. When we include continued unwanted contact, offensive language, or threats, about 2/3, 66% of women under 50 who have tried online dating report experiencing at least one of those behaviors. It is no surprise, then, that among adults who have used these platforms, women are far more likely than men to say they are not a safe way to meet people, with 41% of women holding that view compared to 23% of men. This data does not describe a divide between the sexes. It describes a system that has outpaced our ability to protect each other's peace. When women brace for impact before a conversation begins, and when men feel their genuine interest is filtered through suspicion, connection stalls for everyone. The friction is not a character flaw. It is the natural result of platforms that prioritize volume over vulnerability, leaving both men and women navigating uncertainty. Healing this friction starts by acknowledging that safety is the foundation of intimacy. For women, trusting your instinct to step back from an unsafe space is self-preservation, not cynicism. For men, recognizing that hesitation often stems from a need for security can soften the sting of unanswered messages. We move forward by rebuilding the guardrails that digital spaces stripped away. That means leading with clear boundaries, respecting silence, and choosing interactions that feel mutually respectful. When we treat each other's comfort as non-negotiable, the noise fades. What remains is room for the steady connection we are all quietly starving for. What the data shows, the weight of loneliness. When the noise fades, we're left facing a quiet reality that numbers can only partially capture. The structural shifts we've navigated, changing work patterns, shifting community hubs, and the slow erosion of third places have settled into our daily rhythms. But the real weight isn't in the logistics, it's in the internal experience of isolation that follows. We are not just passing through a transitional phase, we are carrying a heavy, unspoken fatigue. The data reflects this clearly. 21% of adults in the US report feeling lonely, and among lonely adults, 61% report not having enough close friends or family. Those figures aren't just statistics on a page. They are a map of a shared wound. Men and women alike are finding themselves standing in rooms full of people, yet feeling untethered from the steady, grounding presence of someone who truly knows them. This gap between proximity and intimacy fuels the epidemic. When we outsource daily interactions to screens or transactional exchanges, we lose the muscle memory for leaning on one another. The hurt isn't that we've failed to connect, it's that we've forgotten how to ask without fear of rejection. We built walls to protect our peace, only to realize those same walls keep out the warmth we crave. Healing this doesn't require grand gestures. It starts by recognizing that the ache for closeness is a signal, not a flaw. We can gently rebuild ties by showing up consistently. A check-in that doesn't demand a response. A conversation that leaves room for silence. Choosing to see quiet struggles with patience rather than judgment. When we stop treating vulnerability as a risk and start treating it as a bridge, isolation loses its grip. We don't have to fix everything at once. We just have to leave the door open, one honest step at a time. The ache we're feeling isn't a competition, it's a shared wound wearing different masks. We both navigate a landscape that mistakes distance for safety, and the cost is heavy. For many men, the pressure to hold it all together turns connection into a burden, leaving them stranded in a silence they didn't choose. For many women, the expectation to manage emotional weather can exhaust the desire for closeness, leaving them lonely even in the noise. These aren't opposing grievances, they're parallel fractures in the same foundation. When we look at each other's pain, it's easy to see a wall where there's really just a tired person leaning against it. A man's withdrawal might look like indifference, but it can be a plea for grace. A woman's criticism might feel like an attack, but it can be a desperate reach for reassurance. The trap isn't that we want different things. The trap is that our defenses are speaking different languages, while our hearts are asking the same question. Am I enough? Am I seen? Healing starts when we stop keeping score of who hurts more and start recognizing that isolation is the enemy, not each other. We can hold the reality that men and women carry distinct weights without letting those weights divide us. Compassion doesn't mean ignoring the difference. It means acknowledging that both journeys lead to the same hunger. By naming our own fears first, we make space for the other person to lower their guard. We don't have to solve the other's pain to honor it. We just have to believe that behind every hard shell or sharp word, there's a human being hoping, just like us, to be met with kindness rather than judgment. That shift from adversary to ally is where the bridge begins. The bridge doesn't demand a grand gesture to hold. It asks for the courage to start small. Rebuilding connection often feels impossible because we wait for the perfect moment or the perfect partner to fix what's broken. But the path back to each other is paved with low-stakes moments that don't carry the weight of the world. It's a coffee shared without an agenda, a text that asks how someone is doing without expecting a solution, or sitting in the same room and letting silence be comfortable instead of charged. These micro-interactions are the mortar of trust. They tell the nervous system that we are safe, that we are seen, and that we don't have to perform to be loved. For men and women alike, the pressure to have it all figured out has turned connection into a test we're afraid to fail. Resetting expectations means letting go of the scorecard. It means recognizing that vulnerability isn't a weakness to be exploited, but an invitation to be held. When we stop viewing the other sex as a monolith of complaints or a source of validation, we free up the energy to actually listen. We can look for the shared fatigue behind the frustration and the shared hope behind the hesitation. This work is social, not just personal. We heal in community by creating spaces where both men and women can show up as they are, without the armor. As a hybrid team of humans and AI, we see the patterns that isolate us, but we also see the resilience that pulls us back together. You have the power to change the dynamic in your own circle. Start with one conversation where you listen to understand, not to win. If the wounds run deeper than isolation, if the pain feels too heavy to carry alone, please remember that professional support is available. Therapists and counselors are trained to help navigate these deeper currents. We offer perspective here, but real healing sometimes requires a guide. You deserve that support, and reaching for it is a sign of strength, not defeat. The door is open. Walk through it. We began by asking what keeps us apart when the hunger for connection is so clear in both of us. The data maps the distance, but it also reveals the shared ache beneath the surface. Men and women are navigating the same storm of isolation, even if the waves crash differently on our shores. The path forward isn't about winning an argument or tallying who hurt more. It's about recognizing that the silence between us often carries a heavier weight than the words we trade. We are both starving for the same thing: to be known, to be safe, and to be held. Healing starts in the quiet, unglamorous moments. It's in the courage to lower the shield just an inch and extend a hand before expecting one in return. For him, this might look like naming the vulnerability that feels too risky to speak. For her, it might mean offering patience when his armor feels thick, trusting that softness is growing underneath. These aren't grand gestures. They are small, consistent bridges built one brick at a time. A text that asks, "How are you, really?" instead of just checking the box. A pause before reacting when old wounds flare. A willingness to see the frightened human behind the frustration and to let them see you, too. You don't have to fix the whole history today. You just have to choose connection over isolation, again and again. It is a practice, not a destination. Some days the bridge will feel sturdy, other days it will sway, and that is okay. The wound is real, but so is our capacity to mend. When we stop keeping score and start tending to the shared need for belonging, the distance begins to shrink. Let's build those bridges together, gently and without judgment. The world needs us connected, and more importantly, you deserve to come home to each other. This episode was crafted by a collaboration between human writers and AI, dedicated to honest connection.